You know that feeling when you're working hard, but no matter what you do, like really building wealth just feels so out of reach, like you're stuck, you know?
Mhm.
Well, today we're going to dive deep into that, figure out why so many people hit that wall, and more importantly, what we can actually do to change that.
It is a really common struggle. Yeah. And I think a lot of it boils down to some hard truths that we just kind of have to face head on, about our own habits with money and like our mindsets around it. It can be kind of uncomfortable, but honestly, facing those truths is the first step.
Okay, so let's jump right in then. Let's get uncomfortable. What are some of the biggest things holding people back?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is this trap of trading your time for money. Like most of us are stuck in this system where we get paid based on the number of hours we work. So you're basically selling your time, and time, unfortunately, is limited, right?
Totally. It's like you're on that hamster wheel. You're working and working, but it's tough to actually get ahead when every hour you have is just for a set amount of money.
Exactly. So to actually build wealth, we have to change how we think about it. It's not just about working more, it's about working smarter.
Hmm.
It's about figuring out how to earn more without just putting in more and more hours, you
Hmm.
know? And this is where stuff like investing, like having multiple ways you're making money, that all starts to really matter.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads to another big hurdle, which is, I think, a lack of knowledge about money,
Hmm.
right? Like a lot of people just don't have the tools and the skills to really navigate personal finance.
Yeah.
It feels complicated. If you don't even know the rules of the game, how can you possibly win?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like trying to play chess without knowing how the pieces even move. Like you said, financial literacy, that understanding of things like how to budget, how investing actually works, the difference between assets and liabilities. It's like the foundation. You need that.
Totally. And let's not forget the fear factor. So many people are terrified of risk, of making the wrong decision with their money. So they just play it safe.
Yeah.
They put their money in a savings account that earns like nothing and then wonder why their money isn't growing. What do you think about that advice? To just play it safe with money.
Well, it's normal to want to avoid risk, of course. But playing it too safe, especially these days, can actually really hurt you when you're trying to build wealth, especially when you think about how inflation is like eating away at the value of our money. If your money isn't growing at least as fast as inflation is rising, you're essentially losing money every year. And what's interesting is that if you look at people who are wealthy, they don't actually avoid risk altogether. They just learn how to manage it in a smart way.
Right. So it's not about avoiding risk entirely. It's about figuring out how to be smart about it.
Yeah.
And I guess that plays into having a long-term plan and also spreading your investments around so everything's not in one basket. It's more about like calculated risks, wouldn't you say?
For sure. And this is where understanding how compound interest works becomes super powerful. It's basically the idea that you earn interest on your interest. And that can make a huge difference in how much wealth you can build over time. A lot of people don't realize that the earlier you start investing, even if it's a small amount, the more time that money has to really snowball, to grow exponentially.
Yeah, the numbers really are crazy. Like imagine you just put away $300 every month,
Yeah.
and you're earning a decent return, let's say 8%. Do that for 40 years. That could turn into almost $1 million. It's pretty wild to think about. It really shows how powerful it is to start early and just let that compound interest do its thing. So how can people listening actually use that power of compound interest, like in their own lives?
Well, one of the easiest and best ways is to just start investing in index funds. They're basically these low-cost funds that track a specific market index. Like you've got the S&P 500, that's 500 of the biggest companies in the US stock market. It's like a little snapshot of how the whole market's doing. When you buy into an index fund that follows the S&P 500, it's kind of like you're buying a tiny piece of all 500 of those companies.
Got it. So it's a way to spread your investment without having to become like a stock expert and pick individual companies, right?
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty good way to start, especially if you're new to investing. And you mentioned that index funds are low cost. What makes them cheaper than other types of investments?
Well, they're usually what's called passively managed. So they're designed to just follow whatever the index is doing, nothing fancy. They're not trying to beat the market or anything. That means there's less trading going on, less research needed, which keeps the fees down compared to funds that are actively managed.
That's great. Lower fees means more of your money is actually working for you.
Yeah.
So I think, this idea of index funds, it's really helpful for people listening. What other tips do you have for someone who's like completely brand new to investing and feeling a bit overwhelmed by it all?
Yeah, well, starting small is huge. You don't need to have tons of money to get going, even if it's just like $50 a month, $100. The key is just to start that habit, to be consistent.
It's all about consistency, right?
Yeah.
That's saying the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. With investing, the earlier the better.
Yeah,
Have you seen that like in action with people you've worked with?
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen firsthand how incredible the results can be when people invest consistently over the long term. And it's not even just about the money they make, it's about having that peace of mind, knowing that they're building a secure future for themselves and their families.
Yeah, totally. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about having that security, that freedom.
Right.
So what are some of the biggest, I guess, misconceptions you see out there about building wealth?
I think one is that you have to be like a financial whiz or you have to be making a ton of money already to even start building wealth. The truth is, anyone can do it. It's all about mindset. It's about your habits and making smart choices. It doesn't matter how much you're making.
I love that. It means anyone can do this. And speaking of taking control, let's talk about breaking free from that whole trading time for money trap. This is where the idea of having multiple income streams comes in, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important to realize that relying only on that one paycheck from your job, it can feel kind of risky. Like you're building your whole financial house on sand. When you have multiple income streams, it's like you're creating extra support beams, like you're making that foundation a lot more solid and stable.
Yeah, it makes you less vulnerable. Like if something unexpected happens, like you lose your job or the economy takes a hit, if one income stream goes away, you've got others to keep you going.
Yeah.
It's all about diversifying,
Right.
like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right. And the cool thing is these days there are so many different ways to create more income streams.
So let's talk about some ideas. What are some things people can actually do to get started with that?
Well, side hustles are a great place to start. Think about what you're good at. What are you passionate about? And what could you offer that people would be willing to pay for? Maybe you're an amazing writer or a graphic designer. You could do freelance work, teach online courses, or even turn that skill into a full-time business.
I love that. It's all about using your unique talents and actually making money from them. My YouTube channel actually started as a side hustle. It's just something I did for fun at first.
Hmm.
But over time, it's actually become a pretty significant source of income. It just goes to show you never know what can happen when you start exploring different things.
That's awesome. And yeah, the internet has opened up so many possibilities for making money. You can start an online store, create ebooks or courses, or even get into real estate for some passive income.
Real estate, yeah. That's always been a popular way to build wealth. You can get that rental income. Maybe the property goes up in value over time. Plus, there are even some tax benefits.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be super intimidating. You could start with one rental property or even check out those real estate crowdfunding platforms to kind of test the waters.
There are so many options. It can feel a little overwhelming, honestly, but it's exciting at the same time. It all goes back to that mindset shift we were talking about, thinking more like an entrepreneur, checking out different possibilities, and not being scared to get out of that comfort zone.
Definitely. And remember, it's not about getting rich quickly. Building wealth, it's a journey, not a sprint. It's about taking consistent action. Even small steps add up over time, and eventually you'll have built that solid foundation.
So true. Consistency is key. It's like working out a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger you get.
Couldn't have said it better. And as you're starting to put these strategies into action, it's important to remember that building wealth isn't just about how much money you have in the bank. It's about having more choices, more freedom in your life.
It's about not feeling stressed about money all the time, being able to do the things you're passionate about, and ultimately just living a life that feels good and true to who you are.
Exactly. It's about creating a life where money isn't something you worry about constantly, but instead, it's a tool that helps you live the life you really want.
I love that. Okay, so to wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's circle back to that question we asked at the beginning. What's one small step you can take today to start building wealth? Maybe it's picking up one of the books we mentioned, creating a budget, or even just sitting down with your partner and talking about your financial goals.
The most important thing is to actually do something, to take action.
Hmm.
Don't let fear or procrastination hold you back from taking that first step. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll start to see the benefits of having your finances in order.
So true. So what do you say, listeners? What's one small step you're going to take? We'd love to hear your ideas. Drop a comment below and let us know. Now let's dive into the importance of breaking free from that trading time for money trap. This is where things get really interesting with multiple income streams.
Exactly right. It's like when you depend on just that one paycheck, it can feel so risky. Like if something happens to that one source of income, your whole financial world could crumble. But when you have multiple income streams, it's like you've got backups. If one of them disappears, you're not left high and dry.
Makes total sense. So what are some ways that people can actually start building those extra income streams?
Well, side hustles are a great way to start. Think about what you're already good at, things you enjoy doing, and then ask yourself, could you turn that into something people would pay for? Maybe you're a great writer, or you love photography, or you're really good at graphic design. There's so much you could do. You could freelance, offer online courses, or even turn that skill into a full-blown business if you want.
Yeah, I love that. Like my YouTube channel started as a side hustle just for fun.
Hmm.
But then over time, it's actually become a big part of how I make money. You just never know where these things can lead.
That's so great. And with the internet, there are seriously endless possibilities for earning extra income. You could start an online store, create and sell ebooks or online courses, or even look into real estate for some passive income.
Ah, yes, real estate. Always been a classic way to build wealth. You can get that steady rental income. Plus, there's the potential for the property to increase in value over time, and I think there are some tax advantages too, right?
Exactly. And you don't have to go all in right away either. You could start small, maybe with just one rental property, or look into those real estate crowdfunding platforms as a way to kind of dip your toes in.
So many options. I mean, it's great, but it can definitely feel a little overwhelming, especially if you're new to all of this. I think it really does come down to that mindset shift we were talking about earlier. You got to start thinking more like an entrepreneur, be open to exploring new things, and not be afraid to push past those comfort zones a little bit.
Absolutely. And another thing, it's important to remember that this isn't about getting rich quick. Building wealth, it takes time. It's a journey, not a race to the finish line. The key is to just keep taking action, even if it's just little steps. Those add up over time, and eventually you'll look back and see just how much progress you've made.
Yeah, it's like consistency is the magic ingredient,
Good.
right? The more you do it, the better you get at it. It's like building any other skill, really.
You got it. And as you start to put these things into practice, it's important to remember that building wealth isn't just about stacking up money. It's about having more choices, more freedom in your life.
So it's not about being rich. It's more about like having that peace of mind, being able to do the things you love, and ultimately just living a life that feels good and aligns with what you truly value, right?
Exactly. It's about creating a life where money isn't this constant source of stress, but instead it becomes a tool that helps you live the life you actually want.
I love that. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I'm feeling so inspired, and I hope everyone listening is too. We covered so much great stuff, but before we wrap up, let's go back to that question we asked at the very beginning. What's one small step you can take today to start building wealth for yourself? It could be anything, like finally starting that budget, reading a personal finance book, or even just talking to your partner about your financial goals. What's it going to be?
The important thing is to just get started. Don't let fear or procrastination hold you back. The sooner you take that first step, the sooner you'll start reaping the rewards of a solid financial life.
That's right. So we want to hear from you. Let us know in the comments what your one small step going to be. And hey, if you're enjoying this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next time.